Awesome, Bill. Every time I hear the buck stops here, I think about a phrase that captured me about 10 years ago that really dovetails that one so well. And it's basically saying this: not on my watch. Not, while I have the oversight and the responsibility of being a dad, there's just certain things that it's not going to happen, not on my watch. And so it really ties beautifully with what you said today. And I'd like us, guys, if you don't mind, to just dive into Bill's provided three great questions for us. But I want to start right where Bill ended and circle back to this godliness thing. And I love, Bill, that you said this is not a checklist, and there's some obvious things we can do to grow in our godliness. But you said that it goes beyond that. So here's Bill's question. What does it look like to make godliness your foremost concern? What areas are you doing well in? Where do you need repair? What keeps you from living a godly life? And what are you doing presently to direct towards, to stay away from the secular view, but to have a biblical view? Whether you're a dad or not a dad, godliness should be of our foremost concern. So give me some response to that question: what you're doing, what's working, what's not working, what Bill's given us kind of a laundry list of some additional things that he's doing. The buck stops here, not on my watch. What are you doing to grow in your godliness and to be that example, someone worthy of imitating, someone worthy of identifying and imitating? So let's run with that one first. What do you guys think?
I think it's interesting because the guys on this call we're all older guys. So, Bill, you talked about Jehoshaphat here. He watched his dad, Asa, in the latter years of his career. Asa got off to an incredible start. When they first describe Asa, I hope they can say that about me at my funeral someday, that I did all this wonderful stuff. But Asa, at the end of his life, he made a couple bad choices, and he kind of goes out with the whimper, kind of like a grumpy old man type thing. And so I wonder for Jehoshaphat what he saw, and where I'm going with this, guys, is our kids and our grandkids see us, they watch us respond. We've got some choices here, and sometimes we've just got to decide we're not going to be grumpy, pouting old men, and we're going to suck it up and get over it and move on, because the people coming behind us, they're still watching. They're not little kids anymore. We can't make them do stuff, but they're still watching. And what are they seeing? That's the thought.
What's godliness look like? What are you doing to pursue? What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong?
Wow. Bill, thank you for the message so much. A lot comes to mind about this. I was telling you 7 years today that celebrating a new blended marriage. And so there's 2 girls that I became a bonus dad to, and then 2 son-in-laws. And so I think one of the key things you wrote in here is intentional. Being intentional with our conversations that go below the surface. I think that's one of the things that Lori and I strive to do when our kids are around. And we're now grandparents of a 2.5-year-old and soon to be another one in October. So welcome to that stage. It's wonderful. So kind of to Steve's point, right? We now have the next generation to continue to model to. So I know for me, all I can work on is myself. So I have to every day be in the process of pursuing godliness like you're talking about. So that's continue to be steadfast in that. That's where, God's continue to work on me to change my heart. So I don't respond in my flesh versus the spirit. So a lot of things that is intentional with that. And, it's interesting. Both my boys have mentioned they've seen what I've done over the last few years, and to see them start to put that into practice, even though they're off at college. And I just talked to Caleb yesterday, who's going to be leaving tomorrow morning at 5:45 to fly over to France for a 2-month internship. And he's already found a church to be a part of. And without me even I was going to ask, I said, so tell me about this. Tell me about, what you're doing to get involved and make sure you're surrounding yourself with other, godly men and women. And so, I said, read me the beliefs of that church that you're going to go visit. And so he's reading it off. It was a very sound church. It's a couple out of Florida that started this church over in Strasbourg. So as a dad, that just pleased me tremendously. He has covenant eyes. He's been using that for a few years. So being intentional about that. We've had conversations from the moment they were, middle school and junior high about pornography, and okay, it's there. So what are you going to do to prevent that and to pursue like you said, pursue godliness? They needed to see me. I have to walk the talk. Rod, you've always talked about that. We've got to model that. And so for me, it's everything you're talking about, but I have to be pursuing that daily. It's until he comes back or he takes me away. I want to finish well. I've told my family that. And so all these things are so key, but I think going back to being intentional with questions, being intentional with our walk, that's our kids see that. We go to Abundant as well, and Bill, we'll be chatting a little bit more the days ahead, but loved the message this last weekend. As disciplers, it's not just to take the information in, but it's to be obedient, it's to apply it. And that's what God's really been working on me in the last few years, is being obedient to the things that I'm reading, so that transfers over to other people. So timely message is always important as dads and granddads. So thank you very much for your message. Appreciate it.
Awesome, Scott. As you were talking, I was just reminded, guys, our entrance into somebody's life is that first impression. That's a very important thing to do, but we're remembered by our exit, by the last things we do, and Scott, you mentioned, I want to finish well, and in Jehoshaphat's case, even in Asa's case, great start, awesome, starting, but we're remembered on how we're going to end. And that's why even this message today is so important. We say, well, that's, I'm now a granddad, or I'm a great granddad, and we still have an important role to play. And these points apply no matter how young or old your kids are. And by the way, they'll be your kids forever and ever. You don't move on. You still have a tremendous opportunity to pursue godliness right now, and make sure that you're continuing those disciplines in those areas, and that you have the attitude, not on my watch, the buck stops here. You get that mindset. You're still committed to listening. You're still committed to empathy, to care. Awesome stuff, Scott. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to add in the conversation? Now, what are you doing to pursue godliness for the long haul?
Can you hear me?
Go, Fred.
Yeah, this is under the heading of God works in mysterious ways. About a week ago, my wife, and I went to Colonial Nursery. She wanted to look at lilacs. Now, I'm a guy. I mow the lawn. Lilacs, I thought, was a fragrance or something you sprayed on a woman used, a perfume. Well, I've been having trouble with listening. Excuse me. So I'm doing my wandering around, trying to cover a whole nursery in 5 minutes and ready to go. And I came across a plaque that said, "The seeds you plant today will be the flower tomorrow." And I started looking back over my life with my children and now my grandchildren. And I've been building this wall with all the outside noise of the world. And I haven't been listening to anybody. And I really appreciate this valuable lesson today because in the past week, I've been asking myself, how do I become a better grandfather?
Hmm.
And this lesson that Bill gave is my start to get things back in order the way that they have been and get right on the listening aspect and filter out the noise and let God be the leader. I apologize, but it's been on my mind for the last week to be a better listener, to have empathy and care. And the one thing I need to work on that my wife told me I was having problems with was the tech. So I really appreciate the tech portion of this topic to filter the filth out
Amen.
and make sure that there's clean water flowing through that faucet. And there's never a late time to start. I'll start if I have to. I'm starting over again, but I'll do it. Anyway, thank you for giving me your time. I'll go back to listening. Thank you.
Hey, Fred, what you just shared made everything worth it today. Bill, would you agree?
I would absolutely. In fact, I wrote that quote down. The seeds you plant today are the flowers you enjoy tomorrow. I love that. And that is so true. What are we investing in today? You know? And you're right about the raw sewage, man, coming into our homes. And we need to stop that. We need to filter that. We need to correct that. Thanks for admitting, because most of us experience it, but it's something we don't like to talk about.
Yeah. So let me put this in context too. Fred just celebrated his 80th birthday. So here's a guy who could be saying, you know what? I did my time, I did my work, but he's like, today's a fresh start, a new beginning. And isn't it neat that at 80 years old, you can get a fresh start, a new beginning? And I love the tenacity and the intentionality that Fred referenced there, because guess what? His time's not over. His time's not over. And there's good days coming, Fred, with that kind of a mindset. I cannot wait to hear the end of that story and what's going to happen with the future generation. Love it. Any other response, guys, to what we shared today? Specifically this godliness question. How you doing? Where are you at?
A couple months ago, talking with a young lady who's a kind of a spiritual counselor. I had talked about that I have binged a lot of Law and Order over my life, and we prayed together, and she was praying the spirit of gluttony out of me. Yes, I still have a problem with gluttony with food a little bit, but gluttony of watching too much TV. Well, ever since that time we prayed, my TV has been almost totally been faith-based since. And it's good stuff. I got PureFlix now. I watch a lot of CBN, which is it's Jerusalem Update and those kind of things, and so almost everything is now has a spiritual or faith-based orientation. So that's a good thing. So
love it, Jim. Thank you. That's an active way to pursue godliness, controlling the filth that's coming in. That's great. Bill has also provided a couple other questions there too. And if you want to take a shot at one of those, who's your mentors or some men in your life that are running hard? Who you running with? I've often said, you become what you become by the people you do life with. You look like them, you talk like them, you act like them. And if you're running with the godly, guess what? You're going to have a much better chance of being godly yourself. If you're running with a bunch of heathens, guess what? They'll transfer some of that off to you. And then the talking, the listening, the empathy, the caring that he talks about in question 3. Any response to either one of those questions?
Yeah, Rod, it seems like I've responded this way to last few weeks to a similar question. Who's your mentor? Who's your hero? Who you're running with? And I have to come right back at you, Rod and Greg have been instrumental in my life since 2002, being a part of your ministry. So every week, whoever speaks, the guys that are on here, the guys on Wednesdays, all of them have encouraged me and have been examples to run with. And what's interesting is Joshua, our youngest, Rod, you know that when they were young, I used to bring him to Character That Counts. And to this day, he still remembers an interchange with Dan Erickson that impacted his life. And pretty cool stuff. But so you and Greg, for sure. Jim Martin, who's on here, definitely a good friend of mine, a great mentor of mine. There's a gentleman down in Butler where I work. His name is Jeff Moore, whose life has been totally radicalized by Jesus. And he's just amazing, man. He reminds me of a John the Baptist. Completely has transformed his life. And so he challenges me to make sure I'm living, each day for what God has placed in front of me. And then Tim Truesdale, who's not on here, but his ministry. And so those are men that iron sharpens iron. And so I have to thank you, Rod, again for leading the way in that area. I just think of all of the different men that I've listened to, whether it's through Zoom over the last 4 years or in person. It's amazing. And so it's what you've done and what you're doing currently is so important. So thank you for being faithful in that area.
To God be the glory. To God be the glory.
Some of what we have passed on to our children is caught, not taught. It's a little shameless bragging, I suppose. But anyway, both of my sons are in their 40s. But when they were young adults, I can't remember one of them. I was complimenting one of them on his work ethic. You just get up and you go to work and you do what you need to do. And he said, "I learned that from you." Oh, thank you. Because I did that. I was loyal to my employer and went to work and did what I needed to do. And in fact, I even had 2 jobs for a while. I was in the Air Force Reserve for a lot of time while my kids were growing up, and in addition to working at Hallmark. And so, and my older son, his wife was raised by her mother died very young, and her dad was not part of her life. She was raised by one of her mother's sisters, her aunt, but there was no husband or father figure in the house. Her dad lived just a couple miles from her where her aunt lived and was raising her, but he only came to visit her 2 times, I think. And she latched on to my son when they were in the 7th grade, and they've now been married 25 years. But a lot of that, I guess he witnessed our life when he was growing up, and so I guess my point is just we need to consider what it is that's caught, not just what's taught.
Amen. You're copying, or you're mimicking, or you're saying exactly what our pastor said this Sunday. That was one of his talking points: caught, not taught. Yep. So exactly. Beautiful. Anybody else this morning?
Can I say something to that? I think that it is a lie of Satan that our spiritual lives need to be private between us and God. There are so many things that happen between God and I that my kids need to see. They need to experience. They need to walk it with me, not just And I'm saying this to my own, I wish I would have done this a little better, include them more. Because in Deuteronomy chapter 6, from the time we get up from the bed, walk through the day till the time we lay back down, we're to be talking about spiritual things. We're to be sharing those things, with our kids. But often, and I've seen working with missionary families over the past 10 or 12 years, I've seen even missionary families who seem to compartmentalize their lives. And what happens is their kids are compartmentalized and they don't see the spiritual side of their own parents, and their kids, sometimes this happens even with missionary families, that their kids walk away from the faith. And I think a part of it is because they didn't see the faith of their parents, And so if I had it to do over again, now that our 4 kids are moving out of the house, I wish I would have been a little more intentional in being transparent and allowing them to see.
I'm going to have a really cool chance talking about my own family. Derek is joining our staff, joining our ministry here in June. And, it's part of the passing the torch. Again, I'm not ready to retire. I'm ready to refire, but I'm going to have to listen well, because as he steps up, as he begins to lead, it's not dad telling him what to do. It's me listening and responding and helping him and not hindering him. And one of the worst things I could do is kind of, have this kind of an attitude, let me tell you what you need to do here. Because he really wants to, lead well, and I need to listen well as part of that. So super good application point for me, Bill, today. In this new expanded role that Derek's going to bring to our ministry. So anybody else?
Yeah, I want to make one last comment. The previous statement about being a dad and leading by example. And I'm reminded of the time I opened the door for my wife and she got in the car and this youngster asked me, he was there, and I don't know why it even came about. I didn't know. He said, "How come you opened the door for her? I said, "Because my dad did open the door for my mom."
Yeah.
Just observation. Anyway.
That's right. Love it. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and say goodbye.